Well, I guess we'll start it then. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the post-Thanksgiving live stream with the unexpected musical loop in the middle there. My own fault. It's good to see you all. I'm going to need your help, though. I need all of your help in the chat. First off, hello, everybody. Mario, John Rowe, De Bruno, Uncle Pat, Anders, and Mark. I just reset everything. I am in the process of doing new computers, new software, new everything. So I don't know how this stream is going to work. I'm really scared that something is going to completely freeze up. I'm already getting warnings that my bit rate is out of control. So please let me know if it's extra choppy, if the audio isn't coming through correctly, if something isn't working correctly. Definitely going to need that feedback because I'm in the middle of that nightmare process of redoing all of my software. Not fun stuff, but when it's all done, it means I'll be able to do more VSTs and more tracks. That's totally worth it. So thank you all for joining me here. And like I said, please keep me posted if there are any audio or video or streaming issues. And until I get the verification from y'all, I am not actually going to begin answering questions because I don't want to have to repeat myself over and over like I have before in the past. And we've also got Ronnie in the chat as well, so welcome. Yeah, it's a little weird time for us. I'm expecting we'll see some faces that we haven't seen here before. Come on, give me some feedback. Let me know how it sounds. And in the meantime, we have, first off, you have some excellent questions coming at me here today, and there's a few that are extremely important. I almost feel like I need to make another video to follow up my Harmony video just because of some of the questions that we got here today. So I'm really excited to answer some of these, and we're going to try to get to the really fun ones as fast as possible. But there are a few that I'm really excited about. Okay, good. I've got the approval. Everybody's giving me the thumbs up. Awesome to hear. So let's get right into it then. We've got our first questions from Luther. Now, Luther's got a bunch of questions, so I'm going to try to answer them as quickly as possible. But there are a few that I think more important than others. First question. Why do composers change keys? And what are the pros and cons? I'm going to answer that question, Luther, by saying it's the same answer as why do composers change chords? Or why do composers choose the guitar over the piano? Composers do things because they like the way it sounds. They do things because they like the way it feels, right? So it's going to be your job, Luther, to figure out what does it feel like to you when the key changes. The easiest way to do this is analyze a bunch of songs with key changes and ask yourself, how do I feel when this key change happens? And then maybe you can put yourself in the mind of the composer. The composer did this for this reason, because it gave me this feeling. So I don't want to tell you why they're supposed to, because that's not I don't have the ability to tell you how it's supposed to feel. You're going to have to kind of deduce that yourself. What I can say is watch my video on modulations. If you go on my channel and, search for, or you just go on YouTube and type in signals key changes or signals modulations, you'll find a very healthy exploration of different kinds of key changes and why you might do them. But ultimately, a lot of your questions can be summarized like that. It's about finding out what is the effect and then why would you use that effect. Significance of upbeat syncopation and how to use it in guitar playing and composition. Well, if we're talking about just upbeat syncopated eighth notes, I think, the simplest thing to think about is there are certain genres that depend on something like that. Ska. Right? That's a strong upbeat syncopation kind of feel. We've got a downbeat, one and one and one. So a lot of ska, a lot of reggae, same kind of thing. If I did those with minor seventh chords. And a little slower. You've got a strong reggae flavor going on as well. So there are a few genres that I think are just dependent on straight syncopation. Other than that, the significance is it gives you more bounce. Going in between your 16th notes and getting between your 8th notes gives you a lot more motion than just your stompy eighth notes and downbeats. I think of straight eighth notes and straight downbeats as just being very stompy, very being direct, whereas being syncopated gives you a little bit more funniness in between. Why to play chords behind singing with either guitar or keyboard? Why can't we just play the melody and beat as melody? Well, you can. Kids do this all the time, especially beginner guitar students, they're taught to learn something like happy birthday to you. That's how they're taught to play it, right? So that's one way to do it. like to just play what you're saying, happy birthday to you. Or you could make it sound a little bit more interesting by like singing a full chord, happy birthday to you, right? Happy birthday to you. So which one sounds better to you, Luther? I know which one I'd rather hear. I'd rather hear the chord in the background and a melody in front of it, as opposed to everything just doing the same thing. So a lot of this is going to come down to personal taste, and I don't want to affect your personal taste. I want you to develop that all on your own. Is the purpose of a drive pedal or effect to make the guitar stand out in a band mix scenario? Usually the drive pedal is just, sometimes, but I mean, more or less it's to amplify the signal coming out of the guitar. So you get a weak signal coming out of your guitar sometimes, and the drive pedal is just going to boost that signal. So it allows you to process that signal a little bit different. I'm not much of a gear guy, so I can't give you much of an answer for that, but there's a lot of ways to stand out in the mix scenario live. I wouldn't think of pedals to do it, though. If I want to stand out live, what I'm going to be thinking about is mixing live, like having my guitar players turned down and hoping that a guy at the soundboard can do things as well. And then also making sure my equalization is right. But I wouldn't be thinking of a drive pedal to significantly answer that one problem. If we keep the 1 and 5 unaltered, we have so many scales. Assuming that the 5 unaltered gives stability, how can one decide which sharps or flats to choose to create a new scale? Well, you can create any scale, whatever you want to do. I mean, there is a reason we talk about the same scales over and over again. There's a reason we keep talking about major and minor and Dorian and Lydian, because these ones are a little bit easier to use. They're a little bit more popular, right? So I wouldn't just go about inventing new scales unless you really have a reason to, or unless you have to for some strange harmonic reason. Yeah, there's a lot of different choices, but that's why music teachers are here, to show you the important ones. You know what I mean? That's why I don't do a lot of stuff on, the Hirajoshi scale. There's nothing wrong with the Hirajoshi scale. It's just a little harder to use. So, all right. And then a follow-up question to number 3. If it's the rhythm chords that drive the song or music somewhere, what's the reason we want to outlight them with a melody on top, for example, in a solo? Once again, Luther, I want you to answer this for yourself. Listen to when a guitar solo happens and ask yourself, why would I want to do that? Right? Rhythm does drive things, but there's a lot of different elements in there. And when it comes to why do you want to do that, I don't want to answer that for you. I don't think that's my role. I don't think it would be wise. I don't think it would be ethical for me to tell you why you do something like that. I just want to give you the suggestions of why other people might have. And then lastly, do different keys with the same intervals have different feel and ring to them? Example, B minor and A minor. For me personally, yes. To me, there's no difference between the key of A minor and the key of B minor when I'm in my head, when I'm just thinking about music, when I'm writing music conceptually. Key only matters when I get onto my instrument. It's like, okay, what can I play? Oh, well, B minor is a bar chord. That's a lot harder than A minor, which is open. Oh, well, my singer, who actually is in the player now, they can't sing up in B, so I have to play it in A. So key does not matter to me. To me, it's all the exact same stuff. You write in any given starting point, and then later on you're going to have to adjust that starting point to whatever instrument you're on or whatever your composition is. All right, now we've got a question from Keiko. Keiko has a really great question here. I have song lyrics that I would love to have set to music. If I post them, will you? They're supposed to be the blues, but it can be anything. All right, so I've taken these lyrics out, and there's a disclaimer here. Please know I'm not depressed. It's just an idea for a song I had. So I do like the disclaimer as well, because some people might suspect. Because the lyrics are, my parents can't stand me, my brother wishes I died years ago, friends? None really. I've tried to figure out what to do. Now I'm at death's door and I realize death doesn't want me any more than they do. Heaven is closed to bums like me, but hell won't take me either. Okay, so we got some dark stuff going on here, right? The first thing I want to spot out here is that I do think that the blues is the right way to go. If you try to actually make this a really sad song, it's like way too sad at this point. It's like excessively sad. It's like I just don't think there's anything artistic about taking really sad lyrics and mixing with really sad chords and just bumming everyone out. I don't find much art to that. But putting it in a blues standpoint, to me, the blues is kind of like, the whole idea of the blues is like acceptance of the tragedy, right? You've become, it's like the last stage of grief, right? Like you've accepted it and it's still sorrowful and you're not complaining, but you've got the blues, you're still upbeat. You've still got, you're on your 2 feet. So that to me what the blues is about. And I think the blues would be a good genre for something like this. And what I'll say, Keiko, is that the easiest thing you could do is imagine you're just soloing, but with your voice, right? Don't worry about rhythms and stuff like that. Just kind of free form singing. That's the easiest way to approach something like this. So imagine I'm in E, all right? Imagine I'm like, I don't want to do a 7th sharp. No, we'll do just a regular 7th chord. So this is a 12 bar in E. Right? It's not even a 12 bar, but I'll start singing something like this. My parents can't stand me. My big brother wishes that I died years ago. Well, friends, well, I got none of those, really. And, you know, I've tried to figure out what to do. Right, so I'm just going, right? I'm just like, da-da-da-da-da. There's no rhythm. I'm just kind of talking at you. To notate that would be a complete mess. To figure out, what eighth note, what quarter note is he playing? I don't know. I'm just yelling at you blues style. This is very soulful. This is very fun. I really enjoy this kind of thing, and that would be the easiest thing to do. But to take what you currently have and turn it into lyrics that I want to sing easily, it doesn't seem like it's in that format for me. I don't see a lot of symmetry here as we currently have. I tried to highlight there could be some symmetry here. Died and realize is kind of a rhyme, and then maybe we could have a rhyme here and here, and that way we could see that this is supposed to be kind of rhymey, you know what I mean? So my parents can't stand me. And I'm going to get rid of big brother because it just seems like extra information. Brother is enough. Big just seems like extra information. So my parents can't stand me. My brother wishes I was died. Friends, we're going to shorten this because once again, symmetrically, like this seems like a really excessively large verse compared to these first two. So rhythmically, it's like, how am I going to fit all that stuff in? So how about we just shorten this up? We'll just, friends, I'm just going to shorten it, and then nearly dead, and now I'm going to shorten this too. Nearly dead, now I realize. So all I did was shorten. That's it. Just remove stuff. Now, what's my rhyme here for me? I want to come up with a rhyme for it. Parents can't stand me. Brother wishes I died. I don't want to rhyme me with me. But you know what? Let's do it because I don't have any other ideas. No, wait, hold on a second. Let's see here. My parents can't stand me. My brother wishes I died. What can rhyme with me? This is not the line I want. This is what I'd call a placeholder line because I don't have anything better. All right, but it rhymes. My parents can't stand me. My brother wishes I died. I'm always so angry, nearly dead. Always so angry, but now I realize. We'll just shorten it even more, okay? So I've taken away a lot of the anger here, but at least I've turned it into something that, on its own, it has rhythm. This on its own has like something I can turn it into a song without thinking of chords. Like a kid could sing this, right? My parents can't stand me. My brother wish I died. My parents can't stand me. My parents can't stand me. My bro wishes I died. I want to change this to bro because then it rhymes better. My parents can't stand me. They all just wish I die. Now, I know this isn't grammatically correct, but I can sing it better. My parents can't stand me. They all just wish I died. I'm always so angry, but now I realize. Boom. I have something that like sings, right? I have something that like a little kid could do this. I want to stress this. Little children do this all the time. They make fun of each other and they make really cruel rhymes about each other. And they don't think like, is the anacrusis on the 16th note? Am I in the Dorian mode? No, they're just doing the natural human thing that we all have, which is to sing and to make music and to be rhythmic and to be musical. So if you can get rid of all your theory for a little bit and if you can be really childish and take what the ideas that you've written around and just turn them into a bad nursery rhyme, na-na, na-na, boo-boo, you'll have something that's singable. And now, from there, you can at least maybe do something with this. My parents can't stand me. They all wish, and I don't have to stick to that rhythm, but I can at least got something that's rhythmable. My parents can't stand me. I could turn this into a punk song, right? My parents can't stand me. They all wish I died. I'm always so angry, but now I realize death doesn't want me more. In heaven there's a bunch of ways we could go with this, but to me, the important thing is when you just have lyrics, those lyrics are going to be sung, and singable lyrics need to be singable. So you're going to have to do a lot of work to make them singable. Unless you wrote them singing them already. If you just wrote them on the page without singing them, they're probably going to need revision. They're probably going to need construction to get them working. But if you sang them, well, they're already singable, all right? You need to be childish to enjoy my singing, Mark Wright says. Yes. Well, that's kind of the same thing for me. I would rather write funny music because I'm not very good at writing insightful, soulful music. Hence my latest creation, the Taco Bell song. So, Keiko, I hope that helps. I think this is a really difficult topic. I think the last thing I'm going to leave you with is the real gold. I think the most important thing you can do is, the most important tip you can take away from this is make sure that what you're doing is singable. And like, you know, how are you supposed to sing this? Heaven is closed to bums like me. If you put that emphasis on the wrong syllable, if you've got that wrong, it's not going to work. You know, how are you supposed to sing the word, this phrase, heaven is closed to bums like me? You know how you're not supposed to say it? Like this, heaven is closed to bums like me. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? The way I just said those lyrics didn't make any sense. So if I try to sing them and that's how they're partitioned off, it's certainly not going to flow. It's going to be what I would call bad music. Good lyrical statements flow like natural sentences. So you got to think about heaven is closed to bums like me. Now I have a melody. Heaven is closed to bums like, heaven is closed to bums like me. Now I've got a totally different melody for a totally different song. Heaven is closed to bums like me. Heaven is closed to bums like me. I mean, that's a different song altogether. But notice how it flowed off my tongue. Heaven is closed to bums like me. What doesn't work is heaven is closed to bums like me, right? Is closed. Nobody wants to say that. Nobody would say that to you. Heaven is closed to bums. It has to reflect your natural speech as well. So just using your natural speech should help you get into the groove of things there. Alrighty, so let's continue on forward. Uncle Pat is saying, my question is this. Me and some friends have been wanting to make music. Thing is, we don't really have too much knowledge in music theory, aside from basic things, the stuff you learn in high school. And the weird thing is, when listening to music, I can imagine what would sound good. Or when my buddy shows me something, I have all these sounds in my head, but I don't have the means to actually express it. Any ideas on maybe a starting point for me or where I can get the means to do so? Uncle Pat, I am really happy for you. That is an excellent problem to have. This is the best problem you could possibly have, is to have music in your head and not have yet developed the skills to get that from your head and into the real world, either verbally or on your instrument. The great news is that this is totally doable. This is absolutely conquerable. The hard part is having music in your head. That's where I struggle teaching people. How do I teach people to be inspired to hear something? And I am reluctant to say I don't think I can. I think it's something that, like, you either have good taste or you have bad taste. You either have good ideas in your head or bad ideas in your head. And I don't really care. It's my job to empower you to get those ideas out into the real world, and the world will judge if they're good ideas or bad ideas. But the fact that you're hearing stuff in your head, this is awesome. Do not despair. Do not be worried at all. Everything about music theory is about having a label for something. So when I hear something in my head, not only do I hear it, but I also have the tool for it. I'm hearing something and I can say, oh, I know that is a power chord, and I know the guy singing the minor third above it. Or I can say, I can hear, like a samba beat, and I can hear some like minor seventh chords on top of my hearing this in my head. Now, when I get on my computer, I know what a samba beat is, so I'll program in a samba beat. I know what minor seventh chords are. I'll do that. So otherwise, without those words, I'm just left with, I hear this great music in my head, which good luck getting that out into the real world. That's really hard. But when you can identify a minor seventh chord in the real world, you can also identify it in your head. And if you can identify the 6/8 time signature in the real world, then you can also identify it when it's playing in your head. So all of music theory is about finding ways to label stuff. So that way, when you're hearing it in your head, you could be like, so I'm writing in Dory and I'm writing, and you're doing all the work in here, and then you can tell it to somebody, and then you can bring it to the computer, you can bring it to your instrument. So where do you start? I would suggest that you just keep learning. If you're watching my videos, I don't want to sound arrogant here. I think my videos are the absolute best for that kind of stuff. That's why I teach the way I teach, and this is the way I teach. So I would start with knowing how your major chords sound. You should really know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So watch my video on writing chord progressions in major. If you know your 7 major chords, you're in great spot. If you know all the minor chords now as well, turn your page to minor and learn all the minor chords. Now learn the modes. Everything from there on out is just going to be a matter of expanding what you can do. And it's not like I have it all there. I still hear stuff in my head and I go, what the heck is that? And sometimes it takes me days to figure out what I was hearing. Or sometimes what I'm hearing isn't very clear. It's an idea of a concept, but it's not perfectly written in my brain. So this is something that I'm still developing and I'm still growing with, but it is a growing process. So Mark Wright is saying, everything I play sounds so damn catchy. Well, I'm not caring about the nuance. I'm only caring about the catchiness and like the immediate. That's why I do da-da-das a lot, right? And when you hear me fake stuff, you'll hear me do like a lot of times. I don't do lyrics. I'll just do. Like, I'm work that way. That's easy to do. But if you ask me to put lyrics in there, that's going to be a whole different video, or a whole different ballpark. All right, continue forward here. Jonathan Flynn. Eras, in some sense, can be identified with the sounds of snares. Do you have a favorite snare sound? I have a least favorite snare sound. Uncle Pat. Awesome. Glad that helped out. My least favorite snare sound is like the late 60s, early 70s, really dry snare. It just sounded just dead and lifeless, and there was no reverb on it. I think my favorite snare sound might be really late 80s, early 90s, just that giant cracking. I love that huge snare. So that would be my favorite snare sound. I can't even give you a specific band for it either. They want a Taco Bell live stream. You know what? If the outcry is large enough and great enough, I might finish the Taco Bell song, and then maybe somebody can send it to the Taco Bell Corporation, and maybe they'll send me $1 billion. So that would be great. Let's continue forward. Velvet Steel is asking, my question is, when thinking about the melody and lead, do you recommend relating each note to the key, i.e. F is the fourth of C, or to the harmony underneath, i.e. in a 1-4-5 progression in the key of C, you're playing on the 4 chord F. If you want to play a C note, it's the 5th of that note. But it's also the root note. You get the idea here, right? Velvet Steel, I think of both, all right? I try to think of both. The first thing I think about is what scale am I in? Okay, I'm on the 1, I'm on the 2, I'm on the 3, I'm in all 7 notes of my major scale. But as soon as I'm comfortable, once I've got my grounds, once I've got my bearings, of course, I want to be thinking, all right, the band is playing an A major chord, right? So what do I want to play? Well, I want to play a major 7th arpeggio because it's kind of a jazzy feel. Right? So I'm thinking about that chord of A major 7 when that happens. Now, all of a sudden, the band changes to 4. The band changes to D. So what am I thinking? I'm obviously thinking, I already know what scale I'm in. I already have my bearing of the key I'm in. So now I'm really thinking about the chord, but what kind of notes can I accent it with? So I know that for the 4 chord here for D, I could do the same thing. I could play a D major 7 arpeggio. So you see, I know I'm in the key of A major. But every time a chord is underneath me, I'm trying to accommodate. I'm trying to think about that chord. I'm trying to think about what I could do with that chord. So it is both. You're trying to balance both. And I understand that's extremely hard. All right. I understand it's difficult. So, and I can't do it all over the place in every scenario. There's going to be a million environments and a billion different chord progressions where I'm going to get lost. But I can at least figure out that stuff. I'll have to slow down. I'll have to go really slow. So hope that answers, Velvet. Kai, when writing in minor keys, I tend to find it a lot harder to incorporate borrowed or non-diatonic chords, with the exception of the 5 chord. That's the dominant chord. So I was wanting to know what out-of-key chords are easy to get working well in minor keys. And do you have different ways of conceptually minor keys versus major keys when writing, or do you treat them rather similarly? Aaron has piled on the same question, and then Nicholas brought up a really good point, which I was going to bring up. 2 really good points, actually. Nicholas mentioned that a popular non-diatonic chord chord is the 4 chord from Dorian, which I completely agree. And then also the borrowed 2 chord. So Nicholas is onto it that the real key here is going to be borrowed chords. So let's see if I can get I don't know what my tone is like here. Do I have anything that's going to work here? Let me get something going here for a clean guitar. So here is a clean guitar. And let's give it a little bit of reverb so it sounds acceptable. So the question is, in minor keys, what are the other kind of chords that we can really play around with that might be acceptable? So let's go back to A minor, all right? So here's the key of A minor. And as Nicholas Colton brought up, the D major chord is an excellent chord to bring up because it does bring us into Dorian for a little bit. So even if you're not in Dorian, if you're in straight A minor, this is pure A Aeolian. There's no way of mistaking this as A Aeolian. But I can easily bring in that D major. Listen to how nice. So even though we were in A minor, I can go diatonic out and by bringing in the major 4 chord. And then also the flatted 2. This one's going to be a harder one to bring in, I think, just because it's a little bit more tense, but right, it's going to be a little bit more tense, and it's a little bit harder to accommodate those chords, but I really, really like that flat 2. I want to bring up another option that's way out there, and it's going to be the major 2 chord. And this is all about having different modal mixture options. If you've played in every tonality, have you written in Dorian? Have you written in Mixolydian? Have you written in the modes of harmonic minor, the modes of melodic minor, which I know we haven't done a lesson on yet on YouTube, but I'll do it eventually. It's just a giant topic. If you've written in all of those tonalities, then you'll know, oh, I can go from a minor 1 to a major 2, and I can go into the Romanian scale. That's what it's called, right? The Romanian scale, the 4th mode of harmonic minor. So something like A minor to B major, right? I know it sounds really weird, but it is. Oh, sorry. A minor, and then B major. Right? I love that kind of haunting flavor. And that gets us into the 4th mode of harmonic minor. As I mentioned in the last video, it was probably like 4 months ago, I did this big thing on harmonic minor scales. So the major 2 chord is one I've used multiple times, and I didn't even know how to accommodate it. I just liked the way it sounded. So I think those are the big ones. Other than that, any of the secondary diminished chords, which was brought up here by Aaron. By the way, secondary diminished chords, literally, Aaron, think about it this way. So I'm in A minor. What's any chord in A minor? D minor, right, is in the key of A minor, right? So I found a chord that's in the key. To get to this chord, all I have to do is play a diminished chord that's a half step underneath it, right? So what's a diminished chord half step underneath D? Well, that would be C sharp diminished, right? So that's a secondary diminished chord. It's just a way to get right? It's a way to get to any chord in any key, but when you do it, it's an out of key chord. It is leaving you out of the key, and then it takes you to a chord in the key. So secondary diminished would be another way around it. But the last way I want you to think about it, Kai Williams, 1, I want you to keep experimenting, all right? Don't just take these 3 choices, flat 2, major 2, major 4. Don't take those as the only answers. Experiment. You might find something that's much more helpful, and I can guarantee you I'm forgetting some stuff right now that just isn't on the top of my head. So the other thing I want you to do, though, is remember that every minor key is a major key. So also remember that instead of thinking about non-diatonic of minor, thinking about maybe temporarily going into the relative major and then exploring all your non-diatonic options and then coming back to minor. So you can always relate things back to their relative major key, and that's kind of a fun thing to explore if you're getting stuck in the minor key. Is let's just dabble with this actually being major by just shifting our tonal center for a little bit. Complicated answer, complicated question, though. So very, very nice stuff. Nicholas, speaking of Nicholas Colton, who's in the chat and also providing great examples here on Patreon, he is saying, my question is, how do you try to not just copy and paste the instrumentation of verse 1, pre-chorus 1, chorus 1 onto the second part of the song. Any ideas on how to spice things up while generally keeping the feel of the song the same? Excellent question, Nicholas. Once again, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's going to make or break your song. If you do copy paste everything, it's going to sound pretty bad. So I'm going to give you some real world examples of my own. All right. This is the first verse of a song I wrote called Cigarettes and Gin. It's basically a Neil Young song. I wrote a Neil Young song. All right. So what we have here is we have a verse, but there's no singing. All right. Now we're going to have our verse with singing. So things have changed, but something stayed the same, right?
In my hometown, growing up with a steel backyard, there were people that prayed in fancy.
Now, if I do that again, it would be pretty boring. So we have to bring something in. Let's bring in some bass guitar and some cymbals.
Well, I met you one day down at the Five and Dime. You were buying cigarettes and gin.
So, right, this is all the same stuff, but we've gradually added things to it, all right? Now, here's our first chorus. Our first chorus just has a single tracked vocal.
Well, those good times call me back. Keep my life from getting on track.
Right? So this chorus will come back again. We're going to hear this chorus again, but it's not going to sound like this because it'll have harmonies, right? We just talked about harmonizing vocals, and I think a big key is adding harmonies to your second verse or your second chorus. Now, let's go back to our verse. You already know what the first verse was very sparse. Listen to the second verse. Same chords, but now backup vocals, pianos, harmonies.
We were so smart that we never did ask.
So it's the exact same chords, but everything is different, right? The melody's the same. We didn't change the melody, but we changed the instrumentation. There's guitars, there's pianos, the bass is moving around, all these vocal harmonies. And now listen to my second chorus, harmonies.
Well, those good times
and fills.
Keep my life from getting on track.
Right? So there we go. We have, you just heard verse, there's kind of a pre, you heard verse, chorus, just like that. And to me, that kept its flavor the whole time, even though it was copy pasted. Nothing in the arrangement was copy pasted. So I'm giving you my own examples here. Because I can play them all the way through without getting in trouble here. Here's the other one, Generations by me. And we're going to bring this one up later on. The intro is the verse. This is the chord progression we get for the verse. But right now, there's no drums. Let's do it again with drums for our verse. All right? So you hear the chord progression. Try to focus on that chord progression. All right? So it's like this descending bass chord progression thing, right? Now our chorus comes up, and we have our main melody. The main melody is going to be really prominent. Hopefully you get it stuck in your head, and it sounds like this. Now what's important here is that this melody is copy-pasted for the next chorus. The next chorus is going to be the exact same melody, but it's going to be a full octave higher, and that is significant. A full octave is a big deal, and I think having the entire melody up an octave higher makes it not sound so boring the second time around. Now, let's get to the second verse. Same chords, but they're not being played on acoustic guitars and pianos. They're being played with just electric guitars and palm mutes. And very quietly, there's keyboards playing those chords in the background. Same chords, completely different arrangement. Instead of pretty acoustics and pianos, no, now we're doing palm mutes and heavier, but it's the same chord progression, right? And this verse goes all the way through until we get to our chorus, which is now an octave higher. So hopefully you get the idea there that it's about doing the same thing, but not doing the same thing, all right? Doing the same thing with minor variations. I think of a fractal. If you zoom into a fractal, you get infinite complexity and infinite variations of the same common theme. Like if you zoom into the Mandelbrot fractal, it just goes on this wild-ass trip, and then all of a sudden you see like a Mandelbrot fractal, like the same starting shape. But it's not the same. It can't be the identical same. So it's about similarity with slight variations. I think that's going to be really one of the absolute keys there. So, Uncle Pat and Thomas are saying, whoa, nice. So if you like that, check out on my YouTube channel. Just type in Generations Signals Music Studio. That's an instrumental song that I wrote. I really, really like it, too. I wrote it a long time ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But it's got some fun stuff. There's a bunch of stuff that I still haven't told anybody about because, there's just a million things I could talk about in that song. But there's just a lot of cool stuff going on. Now, Nicholas was also asking about my process for creating a guitar tone. Honestly, these days, my process is find something that works, save it as a preset, and just pull that up every single time so I'm not wasting my time. That's my process right now. And then I tweak that as I need to. But honestly, I hate wasting my time messing around with that stuff like that. I just try to get writing first, and then later on, I like to craft my tones around the song. Sometimes I realize, I need more reverb for this. I need less reverb for this. So, great questions, Nicholas. I hope that helps out. Thank you. And there's another question going to be coming up here about instrumental songs, so we're going to go back to that exact same track. Yes, exactly, yeah. Mark Wright is already mentioning it. Wybrit, I would like to hear your tips and tricks when it comes to laying out drum patterns with a virtual drum kit in a DAW. I usually record the guitar and bass parts pretty easily, but when I add the drums, I struggle a lot to get the right groove, edit the right fills, etc. It ends up being I get it, time-consuming thing. Wybrit, here's what I think you should do. This is really hard, but I think you should learn to do it. Do the drums first, okay? If you have a riff in your head, let's say I've got a riff and it goes, I don't know. So just the other day, I did that, my harmony video, right? I just did that video on harmonized, right? And I had this intro. In the intro, everybody loves the sound of harmonized guitars. So I had this idea in my head of the song. I knew the tempo. I knew I was going to be doing, everybody loves the sound of harmonized guitars. So the first thing I did was tapped in my tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So there we go. About 200 beats per minute. And then the first thing I did was programmed in the drums because I wanted to record my guitar to a cool drum part. I didn't want to record my guitar to a metronome, all right? Oh, you're hearing fuzz when I'm talking. Maybe, Not sure what that's going to be. Hopefully, I can get rid of it back. So here's the idea. The first thing I'm going to do is program in my drum beat. So when I did that song, everybody loves the sound of harmonized guitars, I'm trying to hear the drum beat. And here's the drum beat I'm hearing. I'm going to sing the drum beat. And all I'm going to sing is the kick drum and the snare drum. Those are the only two things I, personally, as a non-drummer, the only thing I care about is the kick drum and the snare drum. So I'm thinking about boom da 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 da. Now I've probably had this beat in my head for that beat's been done a billion times before. There's nothing unique about that beat, but I can program it in. Right? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And because I took the Signals Music Rhythm and Training course, I know how to count. And I know what the rhythm pattern I'm doing is 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 4, and 2, 3, 4. I can literally program this in without even worrying about, I don't even have to, I can literally do it the first time. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 2, 3, and 4. I know that that's where those beats live. So now I've got, and boom, and I've got it. And now I can record my drums to that. So to me, being able to count my rhythms first and knowing where those rhythms sync up to this grid is literally one of the most powerful skills you can have as a musician. And now I know that I want my hi-hats to go I know that I want 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So here is they're saying I got a bad. No. Uno momento. Oh, God. We're going to make this better for you all. All right. Okay. I think I fixed it. I'm pretty sure I fixed it. So what I'm going to go back to talking about, yeah, I'm pretty sure I fixed it, is the fact that I can program this in without having to guess, right? The fact that I can just literally just get it in there on my first try because I can count, I think that that's huge. And now I want hi-hats. I want a crash cymbal on the one beat, right? So where's my crash cymbal? There's a crash cymbal, right? There's a crash cymbal. So I'll put in a crash cymbal, and I want my hi-hats to do fast. And now what I have, and we won't do the hi-hat on the one beat. Now what I have is this. Right? I've got a drum beat now. And I'm counting it first, and then I can record my guitars to it. You know what I mean? That's what I started off with. So to me, it's a lot. I mean, you don't have to do it in this order. You don't have to record the drums first and then, or, you know, put the drums down first. But I think it's a good thing to maybe start trying Wybrit if you're having problems with it, if it's holding you up later on. Because hopefully, the reason I think this is good is because it means you're envisioning the drum part before you're recording your guitar part. To me, those two things are really important. To be thinking, oh, what's my guitar part? And then also be thinking, well, what should the drums be doing to support this? I think that's a thing a composer should do. I really think good composers are not just thinking about their own instrument. So if you are already thinking about the drums before you're recording your guitar parts, then this process that I just demonstrated should be a little bit easier. But I'm not going to say it's going to be immediately easy. It took me many years to be able to do this stuff quickly. And there's still, I mean, it's not like, you know, I still have a limited vocabulary. If something's really complicated, I still have to just guess and maybe click around until I finally get it. But I usually can fix it. So I hope that answers that question. Great question, though. Really important stuff for a modern day songwriter who can't always have a drummer around. My good friend Beardstank, you know, best drummer on the planet, on a tour of the world right now. I think he'll be back here pretty soon, though. So hopefully we'll get this back in order. Now, Jay Gomer's got a question. He is submitting a 40-second song for my consideration. He tried to write a guitar solo for a specific song, and this one was in a different mode. It started with a melody and then added chords and then layered in rhythm and bass guitar and then added the drums, punches, the sound effect, the keyboard, reverse guitar intro. So let's take a listen to Jay's sound. And it sounds something like this. So let's talk about this, Jay. There's a lot of good stuff going on here, but there's a lot of stuff we could easily improve. I think the best thing about here is your little intro. I love the reverse intro. This thing, great way to start me into something. Now, there's something I would like you to experiment. I would like, right here, you can actually see it. You can see how your intro kind of peaks, and then you gave us a little bit of silence. You gave us this little gap before the song starts. Experiment with getting rid of that gap. Experiment with this just taking right into that first note, so there's no gap there. I might like it more. I might like it less. Neither one of them is right or wrong, but I would try that out. Now, this, I think here, it sounds pretty good for the most part, but I do think the biggest problem here is the tone of your guitar. I feel like your tone is lacking a lot of gain, and then you mentioned that you're using amplitude, and it made sense to me. Amplitude, I remember having it for many years. I never, ever got a single successful guitar tone out of it. All of my productions and mixes sounded better when I finally left behind Amplitude. I don't expect anybody to get a sound that's going to like really hit me hard and give me that warmth and fullness with Amplitude. So I hate to give you that advice of like, just get different equipment. But here, literally, if you took that exact same line and put it on a high gain amplifier, it would sound amazing. And here is a free high gain amplifier. I mean, just that. If I took your line, what do you do? And there's effects too. You were missing out on effects. I mean, listen to what that would sound like. And I'm not playing fast. I'm not playing flashy. I'm not doing crazy phrasing. I'm playing exactly what you're playing, but just with high gain. You know, I don't know exactly the line you're playing, but I think that tone is going to be a big difference to making this sound better. Now, let's keep on moving forward, all right? If you've got it sounding better, that's going to make a huge difference as far as the atmosphere is. I like the notes, though. The arrangement's good. However, you've given me this nice grand intro, and here, you're giving me another big grand intro, right? It feels like you're getting a little too intro-y, right? I feel like the magician that keeps coming out and keeps doing tricks like this. It's like, let's get into the act. Let's get into the storytelling part of it. And here we could get into the storytelling part, or even amping us up for the storytelling part by adding more rhythm. I love the drum punches you did. Those were great for giving me the boom, the magician's tricks. The bird appears, the fire appears, the woman explodes and then reassembles herself. So that was your first thing. Now you can bring in some actual rhythm. Maybe a tom groove or something like that, or even just a full drum beat there. Maybe that's where the rhythm actually comes in. But I feel like there we could really kind of have something moving us forward as opposed to staying in that more bombastic intro feel. So that would be my criticism there. Add more rhythm stuff to the outside, adjust your guitar tone mainly, and then of course I think that your rhythm guitar is only single tracked. So when you have the opportunity, like your power chords, record your extra power chords on the left side and right side. Gives it a lot more fullness there. So I hope that answers your question, Jay, but I like the work. It is in E-flat Mixolydian. I love the intro there. And then, yeah, like I said, you mentioned Amplitude 4. So that does kind of immediately ring my alarm bells, and it confirms my suspicions, just because of my own experience with Amplitude never really worked out well. And then I'm seeing Nicholas Colton is aware that Beardstank is with the Black Veiled Brides. Yeah, I don't know. Only Beardstank, man. Only Beardstank. I swear, he sent me a picture the other day. And if you looked at us side by side, if you took any picture of me in my entire career, and if you took that picture of Jeff, and you asked people, if you asked 100 people, who is the better guitar player? Every single respondent would respond, oh, that guy over there is clearly the better guitar. Looking at Jeff, like, he is pure rock star. Like, he is the most... He could just be the most famous person on the planet. I'll just flat out say that. Jeff could pick fame like an apple, like a low-hanging apple from a tree. But yes, he is with Black Veiled Bride. So good job on noticing that, Nicholas. All right, let's continue forward here. We've only got a few more questions, but there's one. No, we've got a lot. I take that back. We got a ton of questions to get to. Mark Wright, who is in the chat. Couple questions from me. When creating guitar solos or instrumental compositions, how much of it is a collection of licks and how much of it is an emotional freestyle? Listening to a lot of Buckethead chill mode at the moment. And I asked in a DM, but I was wondering if you could offer any insight into composing orchestral symphonic rock. So let's start with the guitar solos and instrumental compositions. Is it a collection of licks or is it emotional freestyle? For me personally, like, let's go back to my song Generations. This was all written. Every note here. Every note of this is written. But I want it to be emotional, you know? I want something like that to be emotional. I didn't want it to be however, I gotta say, where did the writing come from? A lot of the writing came from me just jamming out and just freestyling and then being like, oh, whoa, this sounds really good. Oh, I like this little idea. Oh, I don't like that idea. So a lot of my written ideas are born from freestyle. I just hit record, I come up with some ideas, and then I get a picture, I get a slight image of a lick or a phrase or a note, even just a note or a slide that I like. And that starts developing into a motif or a full phrase like that. Now, if you're talking about Buckethead, I mean, Buckethead is like an absolute outlier for talent and musicianship. So I don't know how he does things. I mean, he's incredibly good. So I can't even begin to estimate how he approaches this same exact topic. Composing orchestral and symphonic rock. There will be a little bit kind of on that coming up soon here, Mark writes. I will be doing in my next video a little bit of like cinematic film score-y kind of thing, but it's not going to be kind of rockish. So hopefully it gives you a little bit of insight into the genre, but I don't know if I can give you any specific examples on that. It's kind of a big topic, you know what I mean? So I wish I could give you more, man. I really do. I wouldn't sell you short on an answer unless I, didn't think I had anything to offer. But there will be something in a future video. So, you've been saying you've been recording like 20 takes of freestyle and take pieces of it. That's a great idea. I do the same thing. I take lots of freestyle, but what I don't do is just chop up my freestyle and then say, here's my solo. What I do is I take the little bits of my freestyle that make sense and then I try to build around them. I might have a lick written for the middle of the song, but I don't know how the beginning of that lick starts. So I'll work backwards. How do I get to this lick? Okay, now that I found, how do I leave this lick? So I work like that a lot. It's time consuming. It takes me a lot of time to write an instrumental guitar solo. I'm not gonna just freestyle. There are people out there good enough to do that. I've met them, I've played with them. They can literally just improvise amazing guitar solos that shred. I'm not that good. So because I can't, I do it the other way. I do it the composer's way. And that's fine too. I don't think there's anything wrong. I mean, I would rather be able to do it off the top of my head. Yeah, maybe one day I will be able to. But, goals. So, Swap Neil, if someone wants to write a song along the lines of a previous great song, what are some ways to feel like that song, but not easily recognizable, not be an easily recognizable copy? For example, Comfortably Numb. First off, let's just answer this question. Instead of going through, instead of going through the Comfortably Numb, instead of going through the whole question, let me just try to answer it here. And I'll get on a clean setting instead. There we go. So that's not that clean. What happened to my... Hold on a second. Oh, that's why. Okay, I'm on a clean setting here. Comfortably Numb. B minor. Right? A minor. A major, sorry. From G to F sharp minor, to the E minor, B minor. So if I want to steal from Pink Floyd, let's say I want to take that chord progression and not, make it sound like Pink Floyd. Well, here's what I think. I can literally take the exact same chord progression and I can steal it and it won't sound like anything like Pink Floyd as long as I drastically change the other things. If I turn it all into power chords, for example, right? If I do this instead, if I'm, Now, not a lot of people are going to know that that's Comfortably Numb if you've got these shredding guitar solos over the top of it, because I've completely changed the arrangement. What identifies Comfortably Numb is the mood, in my opinion. What identifies it isn't the chord progression. It's the feeling of that that sedated, the synths and the droops and the reverbs and the hello. Is there anybody out there? It's really spacey. So if I did the same chord progression and I stole the most identifying characteristic of it, now it's a ripoff. But I feel like as long as you don't steal the identifying characteristic, which is the mood, I feel like you could arrange that as a jazz song and no one would know. You could make it a punk song and no one would know you literally took the exact same chord progression. Now, let's say you want to do the other thing. Let's say you want to recreate the mood, but you don't want to recreate the chord progression. I think that's really easy. I think that's even easier. I think just you take apart the elements of the song one by one. What is the element is that spacey droopiness. So let's do a whole different key instead of B minor, let's just do A sus2. And you can just, and we'll have to change the tempo a little bit because I don't want to do the exact same tempo. I don't want to do the exact same strumming pattern, you know, but we're still trying to do something kind of like, and you kind of get that A minor in there. And what else kind of identifies that song is the talking vocals, right? So what if I'm playing like this? And then I start to talk and sing, and I've got something just like that. Reminds me of Silent Lucidity by Queensryche, you know what I mean? And I'm not the greatest vocalist for something like, or maybe something a little slower if I'm just doing, if I start to sing, and I've got delay on my voice, kind of sound like Floyd, and no one else would know. Right, so I'm trying to like think about the mood of Pink Floyd, but not steal the chord progression and the lyrics and the melody. These are very, very easy things to do, in my opinion, is extrapolate the mood, because all you got to do is figure out like, why does it feel that way? Oh, it's because they use the synthesizer. Oh, because it's because they use the scale. Oh, because they use this vocal technique. I think that's way easier to figure out. So I hope that helps, Swapnil. I think it's a really good thing to do, is to try to copy somebody without copying them. Take your favorite song and recreate it, but make it so nobody can tell that you recreated your favorite song. I think that's an excellent practice. You know, rip off your favorite fill in the blank song, but make it so nobody knows, you know, and make it so literally when they listen, they're like, oh, this is great. And secretly you stole the entire song. Joe Sullivan, how do I write good transitions in rock and metal? I feel like a lot of my solid ideas individually, I feel like I have a lot of solid ideas individually, but connecting them seems to be my downfall. Thank you so much for all the great content. Joe Sullivan, I think the key to writing good transitions in rock and metal has nothing to do with music theory that we have learned. It has nothing to do with chords and scales and, you know, triads. It has everything to do with feel and the other elements of music, stuff like dynamics, stuff like arrangement, stuff like form. A transition will sound good if it's at the right point in time, right? If we really want that transition, that's going to be a good transition. But dynamics too, things getting louder and softer to complement that. I have said it before that I think the key to having good transitions comes from the drums. I think drums really warm us up for a transition. You'll hear drummers opening up their hi-hats a little bit and, you know, getting louder and louder. You'll hear them getting down at the very beginning of a verse, and that way that transition sucks us in right away to that new section. So I think other instruments have a big part in making your transitions actually function. And, you know, good bass players too. Maybe right before that chorus, they'll move up a whole octave and you're like, what? And then boom, they can come crash back down to that low note. That helps things stop being just copy pasted. But it's not entirely your job as just a guitar player to come up with that idea. It's hopefully your band's job. However, if you're just a solo composer, then it's going to be your job to write all of that stuff. Jared, there's lots of music theory and ideas rolling around in my head, but my technique and playing skills have been meh lately. Can you offer up a suggestion or guitar practice that you like? Just something at random that might give certain people something to add to the routine. Anything at random is fine. Yes, Jared, I'm going to give you the suggestion of learning a classical piece, a single note melody classical piece on electric guitar. Something like the fugue in D minor. So on and so on, right? Something like that. Great practice, great study. It's going to make you do things that you are not really supposed to do on the guitar because it wasn't written on guitar. It was written on organ or piano. So, and it's also really going to show you all these different kinds of chord shapes that you're somewhat familiar with. You know, anytime you learn like Bach and classical music, you realize, oh, it's all major chords and minor chords, diminished chords and seventh chords. So, you know, there's not a lot of, you know, jazz stuff going on in that world. And it should relate right back to the exact kind of, you know, basic topics that you're familiar with. So I think Bach melodies are great. I think Bach's Fugue in D minor is a good one. I also like Solfeggietto, I think is an excellent one. That's by Bach's son. Not the entire thing is nuts, but if you learn just the first part of it, if I can still play it. Just a little bit of that piece. I mean, really, really good practice. You'll see the arpeggios there, and it's good technique, and it's fun. It's impressive, too. You put distortion on that, you know, it's a great thing to do. Putting distortion on classical guitar. I tried. It was worth it. And when you try, you sometimes fall on your face. Hey, it's been years. Give me a break, all right? I probably haven't played that song in honestly 6 years, which is a shame. Anyways, let's continue going on forward. Pedro, all right, this is the question. This is the question that we're going to have a lot to learn from. So please, if you were listening to me on another tab, flip over to this tab, pay attention. This is really important stuff. Pedro wrote a song. He wrote a song and he tried applying my lesson to it, and it failed miserably. It did not work. So let's listen to Pedro's song and let's figure out why my harmony lesson did not work. Here's Pedro's song. Oh, hold on a second. Okay, so let's take a listen to this. We're going to loop just this first part, all right? First off, I love the song, all right? This is like, just the fact that you wrote this makes me happy because I can see that you understand, I think you understand what you're doing. Like, it makes me think you know what you're doing. You've got power chords in the key of A minor, which is, and it sounds like, we'll do this instead. So you got an A power chord, an F power chord, a G power chord, and then an E. And over that E, it sounds like we're playing a little bit of harmonic minor. So like it's... Right? Well, I don't know if the actual harmonic's coming in from the guitars. Either way, you're playing like a little bit of harmonic minor, a little bit of A minor, but more importantly, the arpeggios you're playing over the A minor over the A power chord. What are you doing? So the power chord's doing this, A power chord. And what you are doing is you're literally playing the 3 notes of the A minor chord. So what's really happening here? What's really happening here is an A minor chord. I know there's not a single A minor chord being played, but I'm going to describe this entire thing as a minor chord, as A minor. All right? And then this entire thing right here is an F power chord, and what's he playing on top? The 3 notes of an F power. So what I'm trying to say is that you are not playing leads and chords, you're playing chords. What I see here is an A minor chord, an F major chord, a G major chord, and then finally an E major chord. So I'm hearing full major and minor chords here, all right? That's great because it's going to help me harmonize it so easily. But if I try to do what I did in my video, all right? My video said just go up a third, just go down a third, or up a sixth or down a sixth, right? And that won't work. Listen to what happens if I try going up a third. It's going to sound really bad. What would that be? That first one on its own. This would be if I just go up a third. That doesn't sound good. So why doesn't it sound good? Well, if you watch my video again, I summarized it all after the Taco Bell song. This is really important, okay? Extremely important. The entire harmony video I made, the 20 minutes of that harmony video can be summarized in this 20 seconds. To harmonize something, you go up a third or you go down a third. That's the equivalent of going down a sixth or up a sixth. Okay. If something doesn't sound good, change it to either a fourth or a fifth, or just make it a note in the chord. Okay. That's the entire thing. That's all of harmony. What I'm saying right there is all of harmony. Okay. However, it just gets really complicated in certain scenarios. Here's where it gets really easy. What chord are we hearing here? What chord are we hearing here, class, right here? We have an A power chord. We have our lead playing A, E, and C. We're hearing an A minor chord. Now, what did I say? Harmonize within the note of the chord. So instead of thinking about notes that aren't in my chord, which will happen if I do thirds, or if I do sixths, or if I just do parallel fourths, if I just do fourths and fifths and thirds, I can get this pattern, which is the A minor arpeggio just harmonizing with itself. Here's the secret. Long story short, I'll summarize it. To harmonize an arpeggio, which is what this is, just use the arpeggio, right? When you play a chord, aren't you just harmonizing the arpeggio with itself? That's all we need to do. Let's just play more A minor chord. We don't need to change anything. So while you're playing A minor arpeggio like this, let's have the harmony just play the A minor arpeggio. We're not going to change anything. We're literally just playing the A minor arpeggio, but harmonizing with itself. So while you're doing this, I'm going to do this. For G, for F, for G, and then you have a lick, which I can harmonize a billion different ways. I can harmonize it with thirds. I can harmonize it with fifths. I can harmonize it with sixths, however you want, because it's a lot easier, because it's not an arpeggio. So let's listen to what this sounds like, all right? I'm going to do arpeggios, the exact same arpeggios that Pedro is using, except I'm starting a note higher, right? So if he's starting on the third of the arpeggio, I'm starting on the fifth. But this creates the same relationships I talked about in that video. And it's going to create the same thing. Like I said, if it's not a third or a fourth or a fifth, it's going to be a note in the chord. You know, this is the same stuff. So let's take a listen. Lick, we'll try to harmonize it. So here, in this case, we'll harmonize it with thirds by doing... Yeah. That'll be the ending lick now. 2, 3, 4... So that's one way to harmonize it. I just said that harmonizing an arpeggio, the secret is to harmonize it with an arpeggio, right? So what if I harmonized it under with the other kind of arpeggio? Instead of playing A, C, and E, and Pedro's playing E, A, and C, what if I play C, E, A? Same arpeggio, same chord, but now I'm underneath him, and I would be doing something like this. F. I'm sorry, that was a G. That was an F. Here's a G. And since I'm here, maybe we can harmonize. Maybe we can harmonize down a fourth. We'll see what that sounds like. Billions of different ways we could do this kind of thing, but it's so easy because it's just an arpeggio. It's just a 1, 3, 5, and you can harmonize a 1 with a 3, and you can harmonize a 3 with a 5, and you can harmonize a 5 with a 1, and it goes on forever and ever this way. So it's about just displacing yourself one across. If you're working with a pure major triad, and that's what you're doing, right? Why am I talking about pure major triads? Because that's what you've given me, Pedro. You've given me nothing but major and minor triads, except for this awesome lick at the end. So I just love this. I just love what I'm hearing here. It shows me a good understanding of what you're supposed to be doing with music. You didn't just write a melody. You wrote something that's cohesive. It's a chord progression. It's got arpeggios. It's got a lick at it. I really, really, really like it. Nicholas Colton. Two people talking about octaves. I don't classify the octave as a harmony at all. I don't think that the octave really helps me at all. If I play what Pedro's doing an octave higher, it's kind of like a waste of a track to me. I don't consider it a harmony because it doesn't add any. I mean, technically it's a harmony. Technically a harmony is anytime you have two notes playing, and technically it is a different thing. But if I play it, I mean, I have no interest in doing... out of frets. Totally out of frets. What if I go down an octave? I like the idea of using it as an effect, like for I will do like an octave guitar solo, but like usually as like a production effect, not something where it's like a harmony. It's usually because it creates that weird, and then you have to mix it right, you have to make it work well, but it'll fatten up his line, you know. Oh, what am I doing here? To me harmony makes it like sound like a riff, you know what I mean? It sounds fuller, yeah, but I mean, let's put it this way. If somebody came in and said, hey, I wrote harmonies for your song, and they started singing me octaves, I would shake my head, you know, like that's not a harmony. Like writing harmonies has a meaning in modern music, and it means harmonizing with that note. When you're adding an octave, you're just adding a layer. You're just adding like a harmonic layer to it, but it doesn't add any new harmonies to the mix. You haven't introduced anything other than sonic, other than like through the timbre. That's all you've changed is the timbre of the original melody. You haven't actually changed the harmony or the melody. You only changed the way it sounds or the tone of it. But when you add in a harmony, it literally changes what's going on. You're getting new stuff there. So it's like a production effect. That's what I would always see in octave. Octave doubling is always a production choice, in my opinion. So, one last question. Thank you so much for that question, Pedro. That was an excellent question. Really, really important stuff. And I wanted to put everything in my video on harmonies, but it's definitely, I clearly missed out on a few things about harmonizing arpeggio. There's a ton of stuff I've missed out on, but I tried to keep it to the basics. And of course, you found a great example of where just doing thirds and sixths fails. But hopefully, if you really get that video, you realize like, oh yeah, it's all major chords and minor chords. And what are you using? You're using major chords and minor chords. So how should we harmonize with major chords and minor chords? With themselves. Like that's why they work. They're their own independent harmonies. You know what I mean? Now, Wolfie sent in a question. Wolfie has some feedback looking for. Really cool project by Wolfie. Check this out. This is a guitar-centric piece in D Hungarian minor with a bit of a shuffle feel. I tried writing a solo, but I have no clue if it's good or even possible for that matter. Certainly possible. So let's take a listen to this. That is Hungarian minor. Now, I'm going to assume these are fake guitars. And the fake tremolo guitars sound really good. If those are fake, they sound really good. I love that. By the way, if you guys are wondering why it sounds so weird, it's because it's Hungarian minor. It's got a tritone in it. It's got some chromatics in it. This is cool. This is really nice. But, Wolfie, right about here, I wanted something. Boom, tack it. You know, and you gave me a modulation, but I really wanted some rhythm. You know what I mean? You gave me the rhythm eventually, but I feel like it's a little late to the party. You know, it works. I'm not saying it's bad, but I wanted that stuff earlier because I was like, all right, when do we get there? You know? Also, I want to hear this with some really... Do you know how, like, I hate to pause your song, Wolfie, we'll go back to it. But do you know those, like, modern female vocals are, like, you can almost never understand what the girl is singing? They sound like Muppets now. Like, a lot of the modern pop vocals, like, it's, like, just weird vocal sound. That's what I want to hear on this. I want to hear some girl, like, kind of like a 20s saloon singer kind of thing. Like, if you know it's not true, I can't forget your feel. If you could not feel. But I know that you want me, and you can tell me too. I want to hear that, I really do. Here's the solo. All right, so Wolfie, let's talk, Wolfie. You had me, and then you lost me, and then you won me back, all right? This, officially too much for me. Oh, wait, this. This stuff. This is like, this to me reminds me of when I would just start clicking notes in on the DAW, like click, 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 play. And then I'd listen to it and be like, listen to this thing that I wrote. That's what that reminds me of. But this here, that is so good. That is where you won me back. So if it was me, I would tone this thing. I mean, if it was my song, this. That needs to just get toned down. You know what I mean? However, the next part, awesome. Right here, coming back in like that, $1,000,000. I really, really, really like that. So, man, I can't say anything bad about any of this. It's about what would I do or what would I not do. It's very unique. It's very interesting. It's got a cool rhythm to it. It uses a cool scale. You use the cool scale well. There's just about what I would want, you know? Like, I would like to turn this into like a pop song. I would like to turn this into a really cool pop song. I like pop music. I like pop music better if it's like actually got cool stuff going on, like Hungarian minor scales. So to me, to get like a female vocal, I think about that swings, like almost like a younger or like a smaller version of Amy Winehouse. Imagine if you could take Amy Winehouse's voice and just miniaturize it. That's kind of what I would want to hear for something like that. And I think it would sound great. I really do. And I love, you know, if you give this to a real guitar player and have them write some solos for that, you could get some really, really cool stuff going. So very neat. That's all I've got to say is it's very, very neat. And I encourage you to keep working on it. So that's it for us today. That is the end of today's live stream. So if you have any quick questions here, I do recommend that you ask them promptly before we close things out, because that is going to basically do it here. I'll check back in the chat to make sure if there's anything that I missed. I do thank you for your comments. I do thank you for your questions. It makes these a lot more fun when there's actually good questions to answer. So, and I think we had plenty of good ones here today. So. As far as the next video, it's going to be, we actually talked a little bit about it today, but it's going to be one of those let's compose videos. You know, one of the sad things, I don't want to say sad, but one of the things that I would like to change about my life is that I don't do as much songwriting as that I used to, because so much of my stuff is focused on teaching. So that's why I always put so much songwriting in my videos, is because I love to make music. So I think I think this next video is just going to be a lot of making music, because I want to make music a lot. And it's going to be fun to write a lot of music. So that's good. But it'll also be educational as well, except it'll probably be a little self-indulgent on the let's make music kind of stuff. So. Do you always program in individual beats? Do you ever use pre-programmed grooves? Yes, Doc V. I often will bring in drum loops just to get something started. I'll throw in drum loops just to like have something to jam out to, or just have something to sing over, or to have people record over when they're recording a scratch guitar part. I often use a drum loop. I very rarely will keep that drum loop. I usually program in something specifically, or we have a real drummer play the drum part afterward. If it's electronic, maybe I'll use drum loops for like layers. I mean, it's very rare that my main drum part's going to be a loop. I can't see how that's ever going to work. But as like a layer, yeah, maybe I'll use like a hi-hat loop and put that in the left channel, and I'll put like a shaker loop and put that in the right hand, but never as the main focus. Favorite item on the Taco Bell menu? I think you got to go with the cheesy gordita crunch, right? I think that's like, I mean, I'm no, culinary expert, but I mean, it is made of the finest meats and cheeses and spices. So I think that's pretty obvious. How would you recommend arranging a cover so it sounds different but identifiable? Well, if you completely change the instrumentation, as far as we went from electric to acoustic, that makes a big difference, right? That makes it pretty easy to sound different. Changing the gender of the singer, right? It used to be sung with a male, now it's sung with a female. That makes a big difference. Doing something like a tempo change, is really going to change the mood of the song now. So, that gets a little different. Do you want to keep the mood or not? I don't know. I like to think about just change one fact and see how it affects it. Just change one fact in the song and see how it does it. Instead of minor, it's major, right? Or instead of this, it's that, and see how it affects things. And you might be surprised. It might give you some ideas for, how to go forward. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining here. I don't see any other questions in the chat, and I do kind of have to keep things fairly prompt here today. So I will try to do these. We'll do another one of these here in the not so distant future. I'll probably do a live composing thing before our next one of these too, because I am going to be doing a lot of songwriting here soon. So thank you for sticking around. Thank you for the questions, and be on the lookout for the live composing and the next Q&A thing here on Patreon. And hopefully I can get my next YouTube video done in about 2 or 3 weeks is the plan. But it's going to be a lot of stuff to write for it. I already know that. I already have the script down and the whole basics of it, and I've already got some ideas already scripted out as far as the music of it. But All the best. Hope you enjoyed your holiday. And if you have today off, like some folks do, enjoy that, because that's awesome.